The Galactic Culinary Institute's Shencha board sat in stunned silence as they reviewed the security footage for the 7th time. Ambassador Crixtal's 3 eye stalks trembled with what could only be described as existential dread. Rewind to timestamp. SOAR 47, she whispered. The holographic display flickered back to show a human unremarkable by most standards, dressed in a worn white chef's coat, standing before a cutting board in Station Meridian's commercial kitchen. His name tag read simply, Marcus Chen, Prep Cook. What happened next would later be classified as a Level 3 dexterity incident. The human's hands became a blur. The Vexorian plasma fruit, notorious for its volatile core that had claimed the fingers of countless culinary students across the galaxy, was reduced to perfectly uniform cubes in 2.3 seconds. The blade never paused, never hesitated. Each cut was executed with such precision that molecular scanners detected variants of less than 0.001 millimeters between pieces. Impossible, muttered Chef Zorgath, the Krillian master who had spent 2 centuries perfecting his knife work. The human nervous system isn't capable of such processing speed. But it was the next part that truly horrified them. Marcus had moved on to a Thoraxian razor shell, a creature whose carapace was harder than most starship hulls. The standard protocol required plasma torches and industrial-grade separators. Marcus simply adjusted his grip, changed his angle, and his blade, a primitive carbon steel implement that any self-respecting galactic chef would consider a museum piece, slid through the joints with surgical precision. The Thoraxian was perfectly butterflied in 18 seconds. How? Did he even know where the nerve clusters were? Crixtal asked. That species isn't even from his sector. The investigation had begun 3 days earlier, when Marcus applied for a senior position at the Institute's flagship restaurant aboard Unity Station. His resume had been modest, 20 years cooking on various human vessels and stations, no formal training beyond apprenticed under grandmother. The board had nearly rejected him outright. Then came his practical examination. 14 master chefs from across the galaxy had observed as Marcus prepared a simple meal, human comfort food, he'd called it. Pot stickers, he'd said with a shrug. Nothing fancy, nothing fancy. He'd produced a blade that made the assembled masters uncomfortable just looking at it. The edge was so acute that light seemed to bend around it. Later analysis would reveal it had been sharpened to a monomolecular edge using techniques that most civilizations reserved for medical equipment or weapons manufacturing. The dough was rolled in movements so fluid that the biometric sensors registered his heart rate at a meditative 42 beats per minute. Stress indicators 0. Each wrapper was identical to within microscopic tolerances. The filling preparation was where things became concerning. Marcus's knife work transcended technique into something approaching art, or perhaps combat. Every motion was economical, purposeful, and executed with absolute certainty. Vegetables were julienned so finely they were nearly translucent. Meat was minced so uniformly that it appeared to have been processed by industrial equipment. Learned from my grandmother, Marcus had said when questioned, seemingly oblivious to the growing alarm around him. She learned from her grandmother. Goes back maybe 15, 20 generations? People needed to eat quickly during the resource wars. Fast prep, good food kept everyone alive. The resource wars. The board members had exchanged glances. Human history was full of such conflicts. Periods where efficiency wasn't preference but survival. Where the ability to process food faster could mean the difference between eating and starving. They'd evolved their cooking skills the same way they'd evolved everything else. Under pressure, with stakes through necessity, Chef Zorgath had made the mistake of suggesting Marcus was impressive for a human. Marcus had smiled politely and offered a demonstration of advanced techniques. What followed would be remembered as the Meridian Kitchen incident. Marcus had requested a standard protein synthesis block, the kind used throughout the galaxy, nutritious but bland. Want to see something my grandfather taught me? He'd asked. His hands had moved in patterns that the high-speed cameras could barely track. The blade sang through the air with audible frequency shifts. Within 3 minutes, the block had been transformed into 64 individual portions, each carved with decorative patterns so intricate they resembled ancient human manuscripts. Then Marcus had looked up, noticed everyone staring, and actually seemed embarrassed. Sorry, got carried away. Grandpa always said idle hands meant idle minds. The medical scans came back that evening. Marcus's hand-eye coordination was rated at 99.7th percentile for humans. His reaction time was merely excellent. His muscle memory and proprioception were well developed but not superhuman. He was, by human standards, simply a very good cook. By galactic standards, he was a phenomenon that defied explanation. The problem, Ambassador Crixtal explained to the Galactic Council later, is that this is normal for them. We've now documented 47 human chefs across 12 systems with similar capabilities. They don't view it as special. They call it basic knife skills. The motion to restrict human culinary implements to approved facilities passed unanimously. Not because humans were dangerous, though several council members noted that anyone who could butcher a thoraxian that quickly could presumably do the same to most sentient species, but because it was creating an unprecedented competitive imbalance. In the culinary industry, human restaurants were outcompeting establishments that had been in business for millennia, simply through superior preparation, speed, and precision. Marcus Chen received his job offer, along with a diplomatic request that he consider teaching his basic techniques to other species, very slowly, with extensive safety protocols. He'd accepted with a smile and made one simple request. Could I maybe get a proper whetstone? This station's equipment is okay, but grandmother would have been disappointed in these edges. The board approved his request and immediately classified whetstones as restricted items, just to be safe.